How can we unlock the resilience to face setbacks and adversity? That's the topic we're going to be discussing today on Flourish-Meant. I'm your host, Tina Yeager. And today I have a wonderful guest. I'm so delighted to meet her. Her heart is really dedicated to helping people have the resilience needed in the crisis that we're facing with suicidality and mental health issues. Kristen Christy is our guest today, and she's a sought after international speaker, author, and resilience expert. And she had experience of her own that I'll let her share with you. She also is the co-creator of the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. She's a passionate advocate for mental health awareness and suicide prevention. Welcome, Kristen. I am so honored to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Tina. It's my honor. Thanks for the opportunity.
So, could you please share with the audience that beautiful and heart gripping testimony that you had of going through horrible, unthinkable, heartbreaking crises to becoming an advocate for those who are facing the hardest times in their lives?
Yeah, I say life is an emotional battlefield, and we don't know what our battle buddies next to us are going through at any one time. We are very good at hiding all of that. And so, really, I talk about the tests that I've gone through in life and the lessons that I've learned. I grew up in the Air Force. We moved every 2 years all over the world. And despite all of that, I was a world-class athlete. And at 15 years old, after playing and planning on going on the pro tennis circuit after college and winning the golf championship for all the American high schools in Germany. I experienced a massive stroke just 9 days before my 16th birthday. And it took me a year and a half to learn to walk again. I had brain surgery, completely paralyzed on my right side. And I really, truly felt like I lost my identity. The lessons that I learned during that time is one, my identity is not based on what I do, it's on who I am, my character. Second was my faith played a huge foundation in my recovery. And third, the superpower of community that was needed to get through that adversity. And it took a while. I write with my left hand now because my right hand doesn't work very well. And I will say that this silver lining I have in my hair came after brain surgery when they shaved my head. And it is a daily reminder that there is a silver lining. And sometimes we have to look pretty deep for it. But the lessons I learned during that time at 15 years old helped me decades later. It was no surprise that I married someone in the Air Force, considering I grew up in that world. And in 2004, he was deployed to Iraq and he came back and he was different. Our marriage was broken. We had two boys, and Don was very reserved when he came back, even with the children. And in 2008, he ended up taking his life 3 days before he pinned on colonel in the Air Force. And I talk about the aftermath. Yeah, I remember every single person who was in my living room and my kitchen that night. I made one phone call, and it was our superpower of community that came alongside of us to get us through. And it took a while. Our children were 14 and 12 at the time. Ryan, my 14-year-old, has been missing now for over 8.5 years. He's 30 years old. We have no idea where he is. He was diagnosed with bipolar soon after Don's suicide. And my youngest son, Ben, attempted suicide as well, as research indicates that those who have lost a loved one by suicide are more likely to attempt. He's doing very well now, I will say, Tina. He's 28 and at Edwards Air Force Base in California, working for the government there. But it's been hard. It's ebbed and flowed. There's still hope that Ryan is out there and he's doing well. I I hope, I do have hope, which is not a noun, it's a verb, it's action taking, but that he's out there and maybe he'll call home. But there's always hope. So, because of those adversities, and I don't want your listeners and your audience to compare their adversities to my adversities. We've all experienced a 10 out of 10 on the pain scale, whether it's suicide or health or whatever that emotional battlefield comes along. But we have an understanding of what a 10 out of 10 on the pain scale is like, which is so important to be part of a community. And so through that mess, I have a message about the aftermath. If people think that they are a burden to their family and to their community, it is up to us in their family and their community to let them know they are not a burden. Because guess what? Life is not better without them. Ever.
That is such a powerful message in and of itself. Life is not better without you. I think that's the biggest lie that suicide speaks to us, is the worthlessness of our life, and that we are a burden to others rather than a potential place of blessing, a very needed and critical piece that God created for a reason. So can you speak to that person who knows someone, or who may be themselves someone who is facing that moment of crisis where they wonder if it would be easier to just check out?
Yeah. Um, I think we all go through dark times, whether we have thought about suicide or not. But I think the most important part, there are three parts to it, is feel the feelings that you're feeling. It's okay. Um, and part of resilience is bouncing back. That's not the entire part, but once you feel the feelings, cry, be angry, go through the whole grief process, whether it's a lost loved one or a lost relationship, or a loss of identity, whatever that grief looks like, go through those feelings, bounce back. I think of when I was a kid, we had Bozo the clown that we would blow up, and he had sand in the bottom, and we would punch him and he would bounce back. Bouncing back is important, but not staying there very long is also important, because when you bounce back, you're in the same spot, just like Bozo the clown was. But then you march forth. You march forward, you get out of that space, and I find that to get out of that space, get into someone else's space, help someone else out. I talk in acronyms as a military spouse, and HOPE stands for hold on, pain eases. The E doesn't stand for end. It eases, it ebbs and flows. And it also stands for help one person every day. When you need to get outside of your own circumstances, help someone else, because you're helping their pain ease and you're helping your own pain ease. So that's the three things that I think about in resilience and getting out of that dark place. And most importantly, all three of those, do not do them alone. We are not made to do life alone.
That is so true. I know that people who are in that space of crisis would have a hard time with imagining they could bounce back. I think our fear is that once we experience pain, it will always be pain and we won't be able to endure it. There's such a focus in our common current culture, our modern culture right now, that gets us to want to have comfort. To have to be uncomfortable is something that we're so averse to in our society today. We don't know how to endure pain and discomfort at all. So the easiest thing to do is avoid the discomfort and end life. And that is kind of where a lot of people go in their minds. Well, I can't endure this pain. I can't endure this pain. What would you say to that person who believes they cannot endure pain?
Yep. Do life with somebody. There is someone, I encourage everyone to find that cheerleader in their life, whether it's a spouse or a family member or a friend that you know that you can call with good news, and they're going to celebrate with you just as if it was happening to them. And more importantly, you can call them when bad things happen, when pain happens, when that despair is blinding the world for you and your life. And they're that trusted agent to just sit there kind of in that despair with you, and so you aren't alone. It's hard. It takes courage to ask for help. I think more importantly, as a community, we need to use our intuition and know when someone is off, when someone is not on the top of their game, when something is going on. Maybe they're a Tigger and they have Eeyore days. We all do, but those Eeyore days are extended, and see those signs. And it's okay not to have the perfect words. You show up, you're intentional, and you do something, not say something. I'll talk about two experiences I had.
Well, I can't wait to get into the experiences that you had with what people should and shouldn't say in response to someone in crisis, and how you show up instead of trying to say something to stop the pain in those situations. But for now, I do want you to tell everybody how they can stay connected with you and learn more about the 988 suicide prevention hotline.
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity. My website is kristenchristycares.com. You can Google it, put it in there, any kind of spelling you want to, and it should show up. I do have a white streak in my hair. There are other Kristen Christies out there, believe it or not, but you can find me on my website. Also, I give out my Google number to anyone who just needs some resources. My number is 620-304-HOPE 4673.
That's wonderful. You are so generous with your time and your heart. And I can't wait to get into the second half of our conversation. In the second half of our conversation with Kristen Christy, I do want to get into some practical moments where we talk about what are the things not to say and how you do show up when you have someone in your life or in your community that appears to be off, as you were saying in the first half of our conversation, and needs support.
It's hard. We had talked about that fear and being uncomfortable, and going up to people is sometimes uncomfortable. We say um, it's sometimes a hard conversation to have. It's just an untrained conversation. And when we can get in that comfort zone to be with people and understand that we don't have to fix it, we don't have to say anything, but you show up. In the first portion, I had talked about every person. I remember every person 16 years ago who showed up in my living room, in my kitchen. I can close my eyes and go back into that situation. I had a number of conversations that night. I don't remember all but two. My first conversation that I remember is a friend from church came up and she gave me a hug and she said, "Kristen, he's in a better place." And in the rawness of that moment, it had been an hour and a half since we had been notified of his death. In the rawness of that moment, I snapped and said, "Why isn't the better place at home with his family?" I know her intent, right? We all know that intent, and maybe we've said it. I've probably said it before too. Trying to bring comfort. The other conversation I had was 20 minutes later. A friend came up, gave me a hug, and said, "Kristen, I have no words for you, but I'm here." Now, Tina, when you are in the throes of a 10 out of 10 on the pain scale, which would you rather hear from someone? That second one, right? They didn't have the words. They acknowledged, we don't have the words to fix it, and it's okay. But to stand in that grief with them is so important. So how did people show up for us? Yes, we had people that made meals for us. Uh, Someone came and mowed the lawn for us. My hairdresser came over to the house to cut the boy's hair before the funeral, so we didn't have to go out. I got text messages and actual letters and cards in the mail. That's how they showed up. He died 3 weeks before Mother's Day, and who shops for Mother's Day when you have kids? It's usually the other parent. And my sister-in-law had sent roses for Mother's Day from the kids. She showed up and she did something. They all did something, not necessarily said something. And then they were intentional. They stayed in contact with us long after Don had died. Um, Usually the first 30 to 45 days, people are very intentional, sending cards and checking in on us. And then life goes on and it's okay. Our 10 out of 10 maybe went down to a 9.99999. But we had some friends who stayed in contact with us throughout. And it wasn't just on milestones, but it was just checking in, inviting us to come over for dinner. I had a friend who said, Kristen, every night at our house, we will have 3 plates out for you at our dinner table. You do not have to call ahead of time. You just show up. We will let you know if we're going out and we aren't going to be home. But for a year, that invitation was open. And we did take advantage of that just to get outside the house and get outside of our circumstances. So they showed up, they did something, and they were intentional.
Wow, that is a wonderful set of very specific advice. I love that you're emphasizing the empathy over the answers. People want to give answers, they want to fix it, but fixing it is not as important as showing compassion. And that's what people need to remember. And we need to train people in our church congregations better about how we just show up with compassion, and your work for them, your warmth for them is going to matter way more than your words for them, especially since most of the words you can say will fall short.
Yes, yes. But show up, get out, get uncomfortable. It's okay. That's when we grow. If you think of fear as a boundary of a circle rug, step outside that comfort zone, step over that fear. That's when you grow. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. So it's okay, step out of that, but more importantly, do it together. Do it
Mhm.
with someone else. If you don't feel comfortable going by yourself, call a friend and say, "Will you come with me?" And let's do this together. It's just like calling 988, the suicide and crisis line. Um, I started advocating for a 3-digit number for that, instead of the 1-800 number that we still have that number, 800-273-TALK. But 988, it took 12 years. And it finally um, it went national in July of 2022. You can dial 988 and reach the Suicide Crisis Lifeline. Dial 1 if you're a veteran or military to reach someone with that cultural understanding. Dial 2 for Spanish speakers. It's so important. And it's not just there for when you're in crisis, Tina. It's there for you when you have someone you care about in your sphere of influence and you want to help them in the right way. You can call and say, I'm calling for a friend, and mean it, and they can help walk you through. Resilience is our skills. We build skills, just like cooking and learning a foreign language. It's building on those skills. The lessons I learned during my stroke have helped me in the other tests that I've had to go through with my children and my family. And guess what? I am ready. Bring it on. I know that I'm going to have more adversities, but adversities create perseverance and endurance and resilience, which creates character, and character creates hope. And because there's hope for tomorrow, there's power in today.
Oh, that's a really powerful statement. Are there any specific practical tips that you want to offer to someone who needs to develop resilience in that time of crisis? It seems so impossible for someone who's struggling. I think you've covered the one that says reach out. But for those who don't know anyone to reach out to, maybe the hotline would be where they would begin by reaching out. We can expect that those will be well trained professionals that know how to respond with empathy in specific situations for you. But what would be something else that would help someone develop resilience in the face of adversity? Maybe they're not at the point of committing suicide, but they do feel overwhelmed and they can't move forward.
And moving forward is so important. That's why I created National Resilience Day, and it's on March 4th, because we march forth and conquer our insecurities and our disappointments and our self-limiting beliefs and our adversities, and we march forth together. So some practical lessons and things that people can do to help learn resilient skills. I recommend they learn them with the little things, not it's being prepared, if you will. Um, every day we have little adversities. We call them the little A's. Suicide, a loss, maybe a big A. So what can you do when someone cuts you off on the as you're driving? Or I remember one time I was going to an interview for a job and my pantyhose, I got a huge run in my pantyhose. And of course, I was getting all upset and getting stressed about it. Those are little things when you look back on them. And it's how do you overcome those little things? And I think it's a mindset change. So I talk in acronyms again as a military spouse, and I'm writing a book. Eventually, it'll come out on acronyms, but mindset change. So the word no, we hear the answer no a lot. Maybe we give it a lot. But what did we do, Tina, when we were kids and we asked one parent for something and the answer was no? We went to the other parent or the other adult in the household, right? We found the next opportunity. No stands for next opportunity. When you get no for an answer, yes, it may be a gut punch or a sting or a heart sting, but just think about the next opportunity that's out there for you. God wants what's best for us. He knows the plans that He has for us. And that no just gives us the opportunity to find another avenue. When I had my stroke, I found new avenues for my talents. Find new avenues for your talents. Now, I will say no does have a caveat. No means no when it comes to your body. But when you get the answer no in a career move or anything like that, think about next opportunity and look forward to what does that mean? What does that look like? Because God wants what's best for us.
I know that you have so much more wealth to offer in terms of wisdom and support. Can you share with the audience how they can stay connected with you and they can get support if they desperately need it?
Yes, I think support is so important. My friends call me an emotional support human without the vest, and I do shed a little bit. But I want to stand next to people. And if I don't have the answers, I have a wealth of information and I can point them in the right direction. And I'm not afraid to ask for help for other people as well. My website is kristenchristycares.com. My phone number is 620-304-HOPE 4673. And you can find me on social media. Just Google Kristen Christy. There are a few of us out there, but you'll see that I'm known as America's resilience expert and coach and trainer, and would love to connect with your audience and stay connected with you, Tina. I really appreciate the opportunity today.
I'm so glad that you came on the show. I know that all of you listening feel as though you could just take a big hug from Kristen Christy right now, and you will be wanting to get in touch with her for support to learn more about how you can support others. And of course, I also hope that you will hit subscribe and come back for the next episode of Flourishment.